Right, I'm here today with Mr. Liam Keane, a familiar face for the first time on one of these. Liam, you had a busy day today.
Yeah, just a little bit. Well, obviously, we've got the three signings. I mentioned to you just before we start recording as well. I was looking after West Brom for Mr. Joe Massey as well. He's decided to go on holiday. I mean, what kind of report would go on holiday? It's not like I've been away for 2 weeks.
At the moment as well, so
Um, yeah, I mean, we had the press conference this morning as well with Keelan Lavery. So doing all my preview stuff for that as well, and yeah, it's been pretty busy. But it's good to be busy and see signings coming through the door than be sitting around waiting or trying to
yeah,
find out.
yeah, it's definitely been. I mean, we'll go into sort of each the three of them in a bit more in depth, but it was starting to get a little bit. I could sense a bit of like kind of anxiousness amongst fans because we've not got a particularly good history when signing players late before the start of the season. But I think the three that have come in are positive signings rather than our usual leave it late, sign a bigger player or like a player from a club on loan that hasn't really experienced any football.
Yeah, for me I mean I've said from the beginning that right wing was
Yeah,
the most important position. But what was concerning me the most, being so close to the first game, was not having a second goalkeeper. That
yeah,
was
not even
concerning me
like a
most
new
because
goalkeeper, like just no other
yeah,
goalkeeper.
exactly. You can get through one, two, three games without a right winger coming in. I mean, it's not ideal if you want one soon as, which by the looks of to some extent we have done, but without having Jack Rose coming in, I mean, imagine if something happened to Liam Roberts. I remember there was a game last season. I forget which one it was at home, but he had the flu the day before Liam Roberts and missed the game. I mean, something like that could have happened. Just bad luck. It could have been a bad injury, God forbid, and or something like that. And all of a sudden, you've got a young kid in goal who's not even experienced the first team environment probably, or very
Rewind,
little anyway.
rewind 6-ish years ago, we didn't have any keeper on the bench, and Jimmy Walker, who you've interviewed,
Mm.
grabbed the ball like a couple of feet outside the box, actually like grabbed it and then ran back in the box and got a straight red card. So our right back went in goal. And we definitely don't want that to start the season off. That was,
Definitely not.
that was
So
an,
yeah, that was a relief, I think. Yeah, it was a relief getting Rose in, and I think he's a good keeper, good competition
yeah,
for Liam Roberts. They seem to get on really well as well. It's something I spoke to both of them about, and they seem to get on as mates and as teammates quite well. So I think
they're
that's a good thing,
the
and
age, aren't
to be
they? Well,
happy for the other to play.
they're within a year of each other, which I think is quite a nice position to be in because you sort of tend to look at clubs and they either start an older keeper and the second is quite a young sort of talented keeper, or it's the other way around where you've got a young talented keeper and then the older head that can come in if you need a couple of games. But I think having two in their mid twenties that have got someone like Mike Taylor pushing them, I don't know. I think last season at times I felt that Rose didn't play because he wasn't as, and that giving Robbo the game time was a more logical option. That you go, well,
Mm.
this is a loanee that hasn't really played, but I want our player to play. Whereas I think
Yeah,
now that he's signed permanently, you've got that sort of. They're both Walsall keepers. They're both permanent Walsall keepers. That if one of them has a bad couple of games, now the other one is there ready to come in. I don't know. What do you think? Am I chatting out my backside with
yeah.
that?
No, I think it's not a bad interpretation of it because I think that a lot of managers, not necessarily saying Darryl is this, but I think a lot of managers have that tendency to sort of think that way anyway. When you look at a player, for example, like Cameron Pring, it was almost the whole point of bringing him in was that he was going to be the first choice wing back slash left back aside from the injuries. But when you bring in a keeper on loan, that is quite obviously going to be behind Liam Roberts in the pecking order, there is that going to be that tendency that you're not really going to want to give him as many minutes, perhaps. There was that spell in, I forget when it was. It might have been early November, maybe a bit earlier than that. I can't remember. But where he played Rose for about 3 or 4 games over Roberts. I think Roberts made an error in one of the games, and he sort of dropped him. And as far as I remember, it was never described to me by Darryl as dropped, but he'd made an error the week before and then didn't play the next week. I don't know how else you describe it. So I think it's partially that, but I think it's partially that I think Liam Roberts is just a very, very good goalkeeper, particularly for League Two level. I really do rate him.
And I think he needed a confidence boost as well, Robbo, after the previous season where it wasn't going their way. And I think if you can build a keeper up that's ours, that's going to be better than going, oh, we've signed a loan player because we don't want you to play. Whereas I think now they're both our players, it's going to be I think it's going to be more of a competition there than there was last year.
I think I'm fully expecting that Liam will play on Saturday.
Yeah.
I think it will be they're the best team as far as I was concerned. I would be shocked if Jack doesn't play on Tuesday against Bristol Rovers.
Yeah.
Trophy. I'll be shocked if he doesn't play that game. I expect him to play all of those group games, then carry on playing it if they get through.
Yeah, I think something that when I saw the fixtures, I thought, right, yeah, we're going to see a couple of different lineups, maybe even a different couple of formations. But I think the first 2 games before the season starts, I don't want to say free hit, but yes, Sheffield Wednesday are in a bit of decline. There's lots of problems off the field, but the players they've got are still Championship players, and that is a big gap. If we win, fantastic. What a confidence boost to go into the first game of the season. But if we lose, it's not like we're losing against a team that we're going to be playing in like 3 weeks' time. I think it's the sort of ideal opener in my eyes that players can have another 90 minutes to get fitness under their belt, but there's not the pressure of we should be winning this game.
I would agree with that. There's a book coming.
Yeah.
The only problem is with that midweek game in the EFL Trophy. If they lose Saturday and then they lose to a Bristol Rovers side that are a League One side, whether they'll play their full strength side or not, we don't know. But if they lose 2 games on the bounce to start the season, regardless of the competition, regardless of the fact it's not League Two, it's never a good habit to get into, is losing games. So
Agreed.
I think, if they can get a result in at least one of those games, then I think you've got a valid point there, because they're getting minutes under their belt before they go into the league, which is undoubtedly more important.
Yeah, I think the EFL Trophy people will take it a bit more seriously this year, with the fact that despite it being a fixture congestion, there's some much needed prize money up for grabs. And winning a game in the group stage, if I remember correctly, is about £20,000, which doesn't sound a lot, but if you win all 3 group games, you've got 60k in the bank, which is effectively a player on £1,000 a week for a year. Just for
that's true, yeah, and that you're working within the parameters of a decent Walsall signing there as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a good way of looking at it, and it's something that, having spoken to Darryl last year about cup games, whether they're important or whether they're a nuisance, talking about money, Darryl always took the view of wanting to do well in them and earn prize money. I remember speaking to him about the Darlington game at the time, and the replay as well, and getting that money in. There was extra money, obviously, for that replay being on BT Sport. Saturday is on Sky Sports, so it's all good. It's all good to get the money in. And I mean, how good would it be as well if they could get a win on Saturday against?
It would be amazing.
Even if they bring like a second team.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic to. Yeah, even if Sheffield Wednesday are going, right, we're going to try a couple of younger players out in our starting 11, I don't care what string they play. If we can win on Sky cameras, that'll be a real lift for everyone. Real, like, yeah. And not that I'd ever predict us to beat a championship club, but it's a real unknown. Starting the season, you don't know how they're going to be playing, how we're going to be playing. I don't know. I'm really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it.
Tell me about it. 6 months without football. This might be a good time to say this, actually, because I was thinking of, I don't want it to sound sort of manufactured saying that I was thinking of tweeting it, because it sort of makes it sound like I was planning this the whole way. But I've sort of been thinking about how sort of privileged I'm going to feel to be there and be at the game without fans being there. It isn't the same without fans, and that's not me saying it because I'm a Walsall reporter. It doesn't matter where you go to non-league, you go anywhere, it's not the same without fans there. So it's going to be really bizarre, but I'm going to probably feel a little bit guilty as well in a weird way, because I'm going to be sat there watching the game and hopefully enjoying the game without the fans being there. But it's it gives me an opportunity to get back into what my job is, basically, which I've not been doing for 6 months. I mean, well, doing it to an extent, but not the football action side of it. So I can't wait as well. It's going to be hopefully a good one.
Yeah, right, which brings us on to signing number 2. And I'm just getting his name because for the life of me, I don't want to butcher this pronunciation. So we've got Emmanuel Osadibe, I believe it's pronounced. Who
I'm gonna go with that. I think so.
The fact that his Twitter handle is Paddy because he's Irish, brilliant. I love that. I thought that was fantastic.
I think that's his nickname.
His nickname's Paddy. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I know that Adebayo's got a nickname of Dave because a guy that sits in the lower doesn't shout his proper name, so just calls him Dave the whole match, which is... So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Dave and Paddy up top would be... what are your thoughts? What kind of do you make of we'll call him Paddy?
Yeah, I don't know a fat lot about him and the right back, which we'll go on to, but having looked at it a bit today, he can play out wide. He can come inside and play in behind as well. So he's gonna cover that right wing / attacking mid sort of void. Obviously alongside Holden being there as well. But I've had a quick look at sort of a few compilations and tried to get as much sort of in there with him as I can. He had a decent season last season with Macclesfield. I think that season is what has sort of kept him in the Football League, because from what I can gather, his time at Gillingham and I forget his other former club. Forgive me, I forgot which club it was now. But I don't think it was as successful as he'd have liked. He's still young. He's 23, so it seems like a pretty good signing on the face of it, and it seems like he's going to be a player who's going to sort of run at defences, who's going to put them under pressure, attack, which is what they needed, and a little bit more experience as well. Someone who's been there and done it in this at this level.
Well, this is the thing. It's yes, he's a young player, but from looking earlier today, he's got over 100 professional appearances. If you look at Leagues 1, 2, and then FA Cup games, League Cup games, which for a 23-year-old is obviously a good figure. But I think last season it was 25 league appearances and he scored 4 and assisted 3, which for a team like Macclesfield, where the players from week to week didn't know if they were getting paid, that's not a bad return for a player, in my opinion. Because I think...
Well, it was it was a mess there, wasn't it, last season? Yeah. So it's going to put any player off. Which
you kind of feel that whatever happens during the week, the players are going to know about everything that's going on with the club. They know there's financial problems. That's got to play a part in them on the pitch. And I mean, I know if you put all of their points deducted back on, they'd have been a pretty solid mid-table finish. But it's still got to have a part to play.
I think it definitely does. It's always gonna weigh on their mind, isn't it? But by the looks of it, he seemed to have sort of knuckled down and do pretty well. I don't know if you're aware of what happened in February though, with him.
No, I
So
know that he left by
he,
mutual consent in January.
yeah, yeah. So he left at the end of January. I think he played the last game in January, which was like the 28th or something like that. He played their last game for them and then left at the end of the month. And he was all set to join. Well, I say set to. He signed to join Southend, who were obviously in League One at the time.
Yeah,
So a manager he knows in Sol Campbell. I think he knew some of the players there as well. I did read an interview with him talking about it. And they got put under a transfer embargo, Southend.
yeah,
The contract, well, the deal that he signed was never officially registered under the FA. He was then basically just sort of sat in limbo, waiting for them for that to be lifted. And I think to this day now, it still hasn't been lifted. I think.
transfer
I
and bar.
obviously don't keep up to.
After chatting with
Yeah,
a Southend fan, the club have never come out and said it, but they've only signed one player this transfer window, and that is one player on loan.
yeah. So there was some. So obviously there was that massive issue with that. I don't know. Obviously, I don't follow Southend, so I don't know the intricate details of it. But essentially, he was left in limbo, couldn't sign, and then so basically he didn't play the second half of the season, although it would have only been until March anyway because
Yeah,
of what happened. But and it was a club that he was a player, sorry, that Southend really wanted in League One at the time. So
yeah.
it looks like a pretty decent signing, and it's just whether they can get the best out of him now, which is hopeful.
Which I mean, I know some of our transfers from last summer didn't work out, but I think if you look at the young players, barring James Hardy, that that Darrell has signed, he's got the best out of. I know he didn't sign him, but he got the best out of Josh Gordon last season. He
Mm.
Adebayo improved massively. Wes McDonald, I know he always had that flair, but he seemed to add goals and assists to his game on a more consistent basis after being injured. Holden improved massively, and I feel that the likes of Bates, who we know were now first team, and even your other younger players like Cockerell Mollett, all improved as players under Clark. And I think having the young players come in that maybe need a little bit of guidance. He's been, like you said, he's been sat in limbo. He's had a tough 12 months with Macclesfield on top of that. I think having a home will hopefully see him kick on and show why a League One team wanted him.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's also the gelling of the side together, which is an easy sort of excuse to say, but that was, I think, is why it took so long for Holden and Adebayo. I think they were two perfect examples of players who blossomed after sort of in the new year, really, from New Year onwards for those 3 months. To be fair, Adebayo was actually probably a little bit later than that. He was probably sort of late January, mid February by the time he really hit his peak of last season. At the same time, though, I think there's more to come from those kind of players.
Oh, massively
Particularly
so. Massively so.
with Josh Gordon as well. I know what you mean when you say Darrell got the best out of him last season, but I think there's even more to come from Josh. I think he's capable of getting between 15 and 20 goals
Yeah.
next season
And I think
if we
probably
really hit the ground running.
he would have been close to that 15 mark had the season played out. I have no doubt about that. Yeah, it was a bit heart in mouth moment when we saw some news outlets linking Josh with other teams, but from what I've heard, they were just one paper coming up with some rumours. But also, I don't think we'd have seen him play as much as he has if he
Mm.
was on his way out. I can't see Clark going, right, I'm going to build up your fitness as opposed to our other strikers if he knew he's going in a week's time.
They can't afford to lose him either. I don't think. I know you're going to ask me where else we think we should improve. But I think another striker is one of them, which I'll come back to when we get there. But I think losing him just on top would make that even more difficult. And it also depends on the formation they play with as well. If they play with the one striker, you can sort of get away with it. But at the same time, I'm thinking Josh is probably going to play on the right. If they play a 4-2-3-1, I think he might play on the right possibly on Saturday rather than put in Nolan straight in or put in Emmanuel Osadebe. Have I got that right? Osadebe, I think so. I need to have to learn that to make sure I get it right.
Look at your first interview with him.
No, because it comes across so bad if you get it wrong, and it's whether they're going to chuck him straight in. He's only signed today. The game's on Saturday, so I think they're going to need Josh big time. But yeah, it's you're right. Yeah, he got 12 goals last season, didn't he? So I think he's definitely capable. If he hits the ground running, Josh's problem last season was he went 15 games at the beginning of the season without scoring.
Yeah.
He can't afford to do that if he wants to try and hit those high numbers this season and really.
But then again, I feel that this season we're better equipped to know what they need to do to get Josh the goals. Well, and there's three strikers as a whole, but also I think with the way that the team improved and the signings that we've made on top of that, I think we're better equipped at giving our strikers a bit more ammo to kind of fire with, rather than like the start of the season last season. It was difficult because we were playing that 5-3-2 and we weren't creating as much.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the five at the back with the players that Walsall have got. I'm not a fan of it. It can work. It has worked at many other clubs, but it isn't the easiest formation to get into. It really needs drilling every single day on the training ground to really get the essence of what each position means, because it's so much more different from everywhere across the pitch. Perhaps maybe from striker it's not quite as much, but than a 4-2-3-1, for example. It's so much more. I think in a weird way, it's strange to say. I think it's so much more technical because you're almost doing 2 or 3 jobs at once. You look at the wing backs; they've got 2 or 3 jobs easily there. I mean, centre backs, maybe it makes life a bit easier having a third person, but the midfield have got to not only be that pivot in midfield to take the ball from the defence and release it, but they need to be creative going forward as well. So, for me, I'm not as big a fan of it. I think you could see from last season, beginning of the season, that Walsall didn't concede many goals, but they didn't score many either. I think they scored 5 goals in the first 8 games, something like that.
It's not pleasant.
Nowhere near enough.
However, saying about wing backs, we did sign I'd say more of a wing back than a full back in Hayden White. Mansfield fans seemed a bit sad to see him go. He spent a couple of seasons there and a couple of good seasons with them. He broke his ankle last January, which saw him miss the rest of that season and struggle to get back in this season. But the overwhelming comment from Mansfield fans was, if he can get back to the form that he showed pre-injury, he can be one of the best fullbacks in the league, which, I mean, you can't really ask for more than that for a player coming in.
No, I mean, that's a pretty good sign. The only thing that concerns me is injury issues.
Yeah.
There's been players already at Walsall that have had injury issues, and you don't want to pile on top of that. But Norman's a pretty solid right back, so is it much of a risk having him in there? Probably not. And it's not the kind of injury also that is necessarily going to be a reoccurring injury. If it was a hamstring, if it was a calf strain, if it was something along those lines, or a dislocated shoulder or something that is causing discomfort consistently, that would concern me more than a freak accident like that where he can come back from it. So yeah, I mean, he in the video he did with Walsall, he described himself as right back, right wing back, right of a back three, basically wherever you want him. So that versatility is going to be good. And that was another big position they needed someone in, because having let Shay Facey go, they needed someone in that position to come in.
Yeah, I think you're right about the Norman thing, but Clark has a habit, as we all know, of changing up his teams. and he will adapt to the team that he's playing against. And I think that's where you can afford to have someone like Hayden White in that maybe isn't going to be playing every week at right back, but there's going to be games where Norman is seen as the better option, so he wouldn't be playing. So I think having the two different types of right back allows both of them to not have to be fit enough to play Saturday, Tuesday, but also to know that, when Newport County are coming up, the likelihood is you're going to be playing Norman because he's taller and he's better in the air than White that's a bit shorter. And it's that sort of thing that I think affords us to be able to have him.
It's no, that's a good point because obviously Darryl does change the teams up quite a bit, and he'll also change it not necessarily to always match the opposition, but to nullify a threat or to take advantage of a weakness. So, for example, speaking to Callum Cockrell-Mollett over lockdown, it's him and Cam Pring, which was obvious in the season anyway, but just to get his thoughts on it, would change each game when they were both fit, obviously, depending on whether they had a potent attack down the right, they needed someone a bit more defensive minded like Cockrell-Mollett, or if they had a weakness down the right, you put Pring in, who's going to get forward, who's going to make runs and cause problems. So I think it's very similar to that by the looks of it. I did see one video on Twitter that I think someone posted of White doing some nice little skill with getting into the box with Mansfield. So, I mean, if you've got a defender, a fullback, a wing back who can do things like that, it's pretty good. It adds to that creativity, which is what Walsall have lacked at times. You can't complain really.
He seems to be able to, looking at his stats on transfer market, he does seem to be able to chip in with a couple of assists a season at the very least, which, if you can get a couple of assists from your fullbacks or wing backs, however you're playing them, it's taking pressure off elsewhere or helping things get moving.
A good way of looking at this as well is to wrap sort of all three of them up is that you have to remember all three of them are free agents for free signings. And it didn't cost anything to bring them in, obviously, apart from the fees and wages that go with it. But in terms of a transfer fee, they were all free agents. So in terms of which was going to be likely this season, having with COVID and everything that's happened, there wasn't going to be a lot of money spent. So it seems to me like pretty shrewd business, really, to be able to bring three players in of good League Two quality, all on frees. I think
was Rose released by Southampton, or was he still under contract? But it's sort of
been He was released by Southampton, but the impression I got is that it was like a mutual agreement to let him join Walsall. Now I don't have that 100% confirmed. The reason I say that is that the wording we were given in that he joins on a permanent deal from Southampton, but with all of them there's no undisclosed fee, for example. There was definitely no transfer fee. And I already know that the other two had left the clubs anyway, because they'd already been in the public domain. They'd left Macclesfield and Mansfield. But then the reason why I think it was in a mutual agreement is that I think a Southampton fan I saw replied to the announcement saying, I didn't realise he was going on a permanent, so sorry to see him go, kind of thing. It looks like it wasn't a sort of an announcement to say he's been released, he's a free agent. I think they'd approached to bring him back in some capacity. He obviously wanted to come. They made some sort of agreement to say, look, we're not going to charge you anything. Here he is.
You do kind of look and you go with Luke Pearce going there to their academy.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah,
whether
it's possible that's had a hand in it. You've also got to take it sometimes with a pinch of salt, because Darryl is very secretive about these things. Everyone knows that now. So whenever there's a transfer or a contract signed, we never get how long it is or the fee, anything like that. apart from when Jack Rose tweets to say he's signed a 2-year deal. So thanks for that, Jack. So we know how long your deal is now. So
he said, I'm glad to have, when he signed last summer, he went, I'm glad to be here for another couple of seasons. And we were like, good, he's on longer than a 1-year deal.
But he'll probably get in trouble for that as well. He probably will get in trouble for that. They'll probably get a message saying, "Why are you giving them the contract?" I can understand why Darryl was secretive about it at times. At times, it's also you think you've probably been a little bit overprotective, but it's just the way he is, and so you've got to take it a little bit with a pinch of salt because what comes out, not to say that they're lying, but what comes out is not always the whole truth. It's always however much they want people to know. So that's not the same as lying. Lying would be giving something that isn't true. It's just not always or every detail.
Yeah.
Which makes my life a little bit difficult because I have to try and find out as many details as I can. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, as I was saying, I think it's pretty true business, bringing all three of them in on freeze. And this squad looks so much more healthier now.
Yeah.
Going into Saturday with them three there,
Yeah.
than what it would have been.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing now is that we look like we've got the ability to mix it up. We've got players that can come in and they don't look like backup players for positions. We've got a lot of depth, and we've also got some cracking young players coming through with the likes of Sam Perry, who obviously featured last season. He looks like he might get a couple of games, and then Jaden Campbell might even make the odd appearance or off the bench, and he's sort of again not really come out of nowhere because he had a good season with like the reserves and the youth last year, but he sort of burst onto the scene that he's now more of a household name for Walsall fans.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I've not been able to see as much as I would have liked to. It's only been the odd clip here and there from the pre-season, but he looks pretty handy. Didn't have the best game ever against Birmingham the other night, which I did watch, but you can't take anything from that game really because it was a load of trialists, a load of young kids, and it was difficult to sort of put them all, just throw them all together and see what happens, kind of thing, and basically just get a bit of fitness in. Because I mean, what was it, 4 or 5 regular first team players in the whole squad? So you can't read too much into that game itself. But I think they've had a pretty decent pre-season overall, and he's definitely an option. And I think you're going to see Perry and Willis probably get maybe upwards of sort of 5 to 10 appearances hopefully this season. I mean, that doesn't seem like a lot, but it's probably more than because they're quite well stocked in midfield as well. So I expect them to get a decent few appearances hopefully, and then you've got Jaden Campbell, for example, coming through as well, who can maybe get on the bench a couple of times if possible.
Yeah. Right. We'll look at. We kind of touched on what positions are left to fill. For me, really only I'd say that a striker, like you said, but for me, I think, and this is going to sound completely doesn't make sense, but either quite an experienced striker that maybe is in their late 20s, early 30s that brings in a wealth of experience, or a very young striker that can sort of have a season to get up to Football League level and then maybe be the odd sub appearance ready for next, or like the 21-22 season. And I know that makes no sense whatsoever.
No, I think that does make sense because I know what you mean, because you don't want someone sort of middle of the road who is going to have a sort of on-off season. You're either going to want to bring someone in who's going to improve the starting 11 straight away, or someone you could build into improving that starting 11.
Yeah.
No, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I'd agree with that. For me, it's a fourth striker, but that is the last priority, I would say, because it depends on what formation they're going to play as well. But it's still a signing I would make. I'm trying to think, because we've covered goalkeeper now. I don't think we need another goalkeeper. I think you've covered all the defence, if I'm honest. I wouldn't necessarily say desperate.
player really, and it obviously is budget dependent, but would be potentially Greg Halford, who I didn't watch the Blues game, but he was getting a lot of positive feedback on Twitter. I mean, I put a tweet out after the game, and people were sort of saying he could really help bolster the experience. So, but I don't know if it's not a priority signing.
No, with Greg, it's a strange one because I thought he played well against Birmingham. He looked. I think the key word for me would be composed. He looked and felt like a bit of a presence, and he sort of took control of some young players around him and helped them and guided them through it. I thought he played well. My issue is he's almost 36, is he? I think.
Yeah.
And in terms of the position, if they needed one extra centre half or backup, because he obviously did play full back earlier in his career, but he's more of a centre half now. I think if you needed one more, then he'd be a good option. I don't think they're desperate really, and are they going to pay the wages and bring someone in when they probably? You look at centre half. Let's say they play four at the back. They've got Jules, Clark, Scar, and Sadler.
Yeah.
Tom Leake knocking on the door as well. I thought he did okay when he came on against Blues as well. So that's four first teamers.
Yeah, before that.
That's before you get to Leake coming through. One of those first teamers being a player who's very, very similar to Holford, who used to play fullback, now plays centre half, similar age. Talking about Matt Sadler, of course, who's now a player manager or player coach rather. So, if, for example, if Sadler wasn't there, then he'd probably be a good option. But I'm sort of weighing it up in my mind because I also think he played well. I think he does have something to offer. But then my question would be: are they overloading in a position where they're not going to need him? Now, if they play three at the back and they're consistent and Darryl wants to play three at the back all season, then they probably need him. They need another option.
I mean, I think if Matt Sadler wasn't put on a player coach role, I think you look to the likes of Halford and go, oh, we could get him as a player coach. But now that Matt Sadler's filling that role, I don't know. It's one that I think would be a good signing, and I think he would improve the squad. Yeah. Because, like you said, the likes of Tom Leake, to have someone like Greg Halford next to him to learn off and train in every day, it'd be great. But it's whether are you really going to pay the wages to have someone like that in when they're not going to play?
Yeah, it's just got to weigh it up. It depends on how many options you want in defence, and also where, and also it's the formation again. It comes back to that, and I just really don't feel like they're going to play 3-5, whatever you want to call it, at the back that much this season. It might be the odd game, like for example, you mentioned Newport earlier. I think they played 5 at the back against Newport, and they hadn't played it in months up until that game.
Yeah, that was the only reason, like sort of saying about Norman was, but there was a reason they played it in that game, and they knew that they were going to get a lot of long balls forward. It was one of those nights. It was.
Tell me about it. I was there. It was freezing as well. It was absolutely freezing. And we're going back there again on a Tuesday night this season. Can you believe it?
Absolutely buzzing.
I know. Yeah, I'm torn. I'm torn with the Greg Halford situation because I think he would add something. I think he looked good against Blues, but I'm also just concerned about bringing someone in of his age on what would probably be a 1-year contract, you'd imagine.
Yeah.
Or even a short-term one. And then paying the wages to not really play him. But then at the same time, would he still be around, or would he still be playing 90 minutes on Tuesday if they weren't interested? They're obviously interested.
Yeah, that's the reason.
He marched, didn't they?
Yeah, he's cool. I think we all kind of felt that the chance to sign him had kind of gone away, and that sort of the fact that he'd been training with the club for a while, and did the article it was with yourself in March, wasn't it? I think.
No, it was actually with a paper down in Portsmouth. He did the he did an interview there, and then I did an article off the back of that, and said he'd spoken to them and said that he was training. But yeah, I think it was end of February, beginning of March. He came in. I think he did about 2 sessions, 2 training sessions, and then obviously everything kicked in with the coronavirus. But he wouldn't still be around now, all this time later, training and doing a friendly and playing 90 minutes in the friendly if they weren't interested, obviously. So yeah, there's definitely obviously something in it. It just depends on whether he gets that final nod to sign or not.
Yeah. So this is where we all go. Liam, can you go and find out for us? So,
so I've tried. No, a couple of months ago I did ask. Yeah, it was not long after he'd mentioned that he'd been with Warsaw. So it was about a couple of months ago from now. I did an interview with Darryl and asked him about Greg, and he just said he doesn't talk about trialists. So which is pretty much in line with keeping most things secret. Darryl tends to do. So he just said he doesn't talk about it. So at that point, I had no idea if he was going to be coming back or not to train, and obviously he has been, and he has been playing. So, but it's also interesting. He hadn't, from what I could tell anyway, he hadn't played up until that Birmingham game. I don't know if he played some of the ones before Burton. He definitely didn't play it against Burton, but whether he played some of the ones earlier in that.
He definitely didn't play the Crew game.
I was just about to say that, yeah.
Although we didn't. I was away from half of it because their string cut out, thanks to Crew. I
was away for Crew and Shrewsbury on holiday, so I was sort of partially. Well, I did miss him.
From looking at the trialists, he may have featured in one coming on as a sub, but I'm not sure. But I think, I mean, it was well documented that he was there at Birmingham City.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was. I mean, it was obvious, wasn't it? But it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to, again, you look at the positions we've mentioned that you need to improve now. I would say a striker, and possibly they've got a lot of players in midfield, but possibly sort of a bigger, stronger, better version of Nathan Sherrin, basically.
Yeah.
That's unfair, really. He wasn't that bad, but someone I think who just fits the mold a bit better than he does.
Yeah.
I'd say that possibly, but you've got between now and middle of October until the domestic transfer finishes. So they've got a lot of time to add still. And between now and then, playing all those games, they might identify a position where they're like, we're a bit light here now.
Yeah. And you don't know if an injury is going to crop up. You don't know if there's a lot that can still happen between now and the middle of October, and there's a lot of football to play as well.
And one thing they haven't done, they've only brought in one loan as well in George Nurse. So you would look at that and think a striker potentially would be a good loan out there. I sort of want to say as well that if the right loan opportunity came up, I wouldn't say for a permanent, but if the right loan opportunity came up, I think a left winger could be potentially useful, because you've obviously got Wes. You've got George Nurse, who can play on the wing, but also is more of like a wing back, of full back. But then if he's going to be battling with Cockrell Mollett to play, you're not going to want 3 of them to battle over 2 positions, because you're going to be a bit light. And obviously, Cockrell Mollett can only play one of those. Well, sorry, Cockrell Mollett and Wes can only play one of those positions. You've only got one player who can go between the two. So it potentially, I'd say that's somewhere. But again, the new lad today could play on that left. We need to see a bit more of him.
Yeah, I think Nolan, when he signed, said that he can play either wing if needed. So I think, if the right loan and it was the right deal did come about, great. If not, then it's not a position I'm going, we need it. Sorry, we lost contact there.
We're back.
What we're saying was that I think when Nolan signed, he said he could play either wing, but obviously right was his preference. So I think, like you said, if the right loan opportunity comes up, fantastic. If it doesn't, I'm not worried that we need
that. That's how I feel as well. It's not something I'm desperately concerned that they're going to be short on. But I think if the right loan player came up, then I think it's a.
Right, obviously, the internet doesn't want us talking about our winger options, so we're gonna move on to questions from the lovely folk that have asked them. So, um, we've covered a lot about the sort of the squad and if we need any more signings. So, quite a few people have asked about realistic expectations for the season based on the squad that we've got now. I've been quite vocal in that I think we will finish top 10. And I think when you finish top 10, you've always got a shout at the playoffs. Because I wouldn't want to jinx it and say, yeah, we'll finish in the playoffs. And then have everyone tweet me this time next year being like, what did you say that for? So, but I'm a lot more confident that we can have a good campaign now than 24 hours ago.
Yeah, I feel the same. It's a strange one because when the retained and released lists were out and Warsaw managed to keep the vast majority of their squad, the truth at that time was, which is something I said, and it's something that I think Lee Pomlett said and Darryl said as well, that we were in a strong position having kept a lot of the players. Actually, Darryl was a little bit more diplomatic with it in that he said, we are, but that's also with a few youth and young players in there as well. So that's how I felt at that time. Then up until probably about the last 24 hours ago, up until then, I felt that they hadn't added enough, particularly going into Saturday. And I wasn't as confident because you look at some of the clubs that have thrown money at it. For example, Bolton have signed Owen Doyle and Sarcevic.
Bolton, who signed a lot of players that now can that they've somehow avoided the salary cap because it's all to do with signings before and after it.
So Salford and Mansfield have spent a lot of money again. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to be a success because Mansfield virtually every year throw money at it and haven't really got anywhere really particularly. So it doesn't mean they're going to do well, but it does concern me when, again, I use the example of Doyle and Sarcevic. They're two players that they'd be in your team of the season from last year in League Two. Them two.
To be quite
honest, both from Bolton.
I'm surprised that they're both in League Two.
Yeah, they both dropped down, and they had the opportunity to stay up there, and they both dropped down. So I think money probably had a bit of a hand in it. But Bolton are also a big club particularly for League Two level. So I can understand it as well. And it's also it's almost like not saying this is the reason they would give, but I would look at it and think it's also comfortable. They know they can perform there as well. They know they can perform at League Two level.
Yeah.
So I got to that point and I was a little bit less confident. I feel much better about it now. I'm excited to see what some of the new players can do. And I think it will, I think much more content with it now. A couple more additions to it. And I would say top 10, definitely. I think the squad is capable of getting into the playoffs. I have seen people suggest that the squad's capable of getting into the top 3. I don't necessarily think it isn't capable, but it isn't something I'd predict, if I'm honest.
No. I mean, one of the things that's been quite telling for me is that Lee Pomlett was very open at the last fans forum saying that he'd got this 5-year plan in mind. And in one of his videos with the club, he did touch on that 5-year plan, because of everything that's happened with COVID, he said maybe push back a year, which isn't him saying, oh, we don't stand a chance of going up this season. It's a case of he's being realistic and going, we're not the richest club. We've taken this financial hit, as have all other clubs, but we're still going to be sensible about it. So we're not going to chuck money at it. For me, it wasn't a negative. It was a businessman talking, which is what.
Yeah, no club can afford to pay beyond their means. Some of them have got away with it for too long. Others have got away with it up until the point where they've got themselves into financial trouble. No club should be going through something like that. So I admire and think it's sensible that the approach that Walsall take,
Yeah.
which has been there. It's not just League One approach. Some fans might not like it, but it's been the club's approach for years, hasn't it? That they're sensible with the money. Now, sometimes that has equaled underspending, which I'm sure some fans will be very quick to remind me. And I'm not saying that isn't true, but I think particularly in a situation like this is now, they've got a hierarchy there that has managed to guide them through a difficult time without going overboard, and then made three free agent signings today that I think are three very good signings. So
The fact that we've gone out and got, no, obviously we don't fully know the deals that have been made, but the fact that we've gone out and actually got Jack Rose and Rory Holden back when we're not sure with Jack Rose whether there was like a nominal fee or what the deal was, but they've made a deal. And the same with Holden. I can't imagine it was big money or it was, going to break records for the amount of money that we've spent on a player. But we've still gone to the club. They've sat down, they've negotiated a deal of some sorts and bought back a player that fans wanted back. And I think that's, yes, he's not chucked money at it, but he's been very smart with the signings that we have made.
yeah, I think so, definitely. Just to be clear as well with the Jack Rose thing, it definitely wasn't a transfer fee, because in the story that in the announcement, that Walsall made, it does say he was released by Southampton. It's a bit further down in it, you can see it there, and because there's no words to say an undisclosed fee, there definitely isn't a fee. But the confusion only comes because there was no official announcement on Southampton's part to say he'd been released, basically.
Yeah.
So it might, just so I can make it clear to people that I might not have made it very clear. It's just that's where the confusion comes from. It basically just means they've spoken to them and he's been able to mutually agree to leave and go to Walsall, basically. So, but they haven't paid any money for all three of them. So it's been all three agent signings in some respect. So it's good business. It's good business, definitely. And they're now looking a lot. I keep saying they're looking so much stronger now with those three additions than they did 24 hours ago going into Saturday, because going into Saturday, as I said already, with only one goalkeeper would have been scary.
Yeah. We've had a couple of questions about sort of, again, like, is top three realistic? But a couple I want to touch on, and we'll pair them up. First choice keeper, in our opinion, and is 4-2-3-1 going to be the sort of standard formation? I will leave the tactics to Liam. I personally, at the moment, think Robbo should be number one keeper. I think Jack Rose in his video with the club summed it up, that he's not been in training as long as other players, so he is a couple of weeks behind, which is very honest for a guy that's just moved to a club. But also, I think that shows quite a lot of maturity, that he's gone, no, I am actually a bit behind when it comes to the training regimes. What I think is that this season, I'd like Robbo to be first choice keeper, but I want to see more of Rose in the cups. I want to see him, if he has a good cup game midweek, to then be given that start on a Saturday and go, right, you played well in one game, so I'm going to give you the chance in the other.
Yeah, I would say Robbo would definitely be first choice, I would say. I think Rose is capable of pushing him to the point where he could get into the team. And I agree, he needs to get more games. He played 6 times last season. He needs to play a few more. It also depends on the progress in the cups as well, because he might not get the opportunity to play more. But if the opportunity's there, I think he needs to get a few more games under his belt.
Normally,
in terms of formation, sorry, go on, mate.
Normally, I'd say I'd like to see him in any Carabao Cup run or whatever, but I think it is going to be a game too soon for him. I think, like you said earlier,
Yeah,
I'd like to see him in the EFL Trophy match.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, with Carmel as well being a Saturday game, first game back, I fully expect it will be a first choice
Yeah.
start. Yeah, which actually this game is sort of the perfect way or perfect example to describe the formations, because end of last season 4-2-3-1 was obviously the preferred formation. It was doing pretty well, but we've seen a lot of formations over the last year. Again, sometimes to cater towards opposition. So again, with Newport, it went back to 5 at the back, for example. So I think we'll see that again this season. I think it will change at times depending on teams. But if the team starts playing well in 4-2-3-1, I think for the most part that will be what's played. I expect Darryl to play 4-2-3-1. However,
with what I've watched in the pre-season friendlies, that's the formation that I don't see Darryl going, right, we're going to play 4-2-3-1 for most of the pre-season and then go 4-4-2 on the opening day.
well, against Birmingham, they played 4-2-3-1 in the second half, well, like second half of the second half, and they played 5 at the back for the majority of the game. But again, you can't read into that because it wasn't the first team. It was like 4 or 5 first team players again with a load of trialists and kids. So yeah, I agree with you. I think I'd be very shocked if we see 4-4-2 for a while at least. I think unless there's something that warrants it with the other squad, the opposition. Sorry. So I think 4-2-3-1 will be preferred. However, Sheffield Wednesday, as I said, is the perfect way to describe it because they have changed.
Right, there we go.
Right, we're back again. Sorry, the internet just keeps freezing for some reason. Yeah, so with Sheffield Wednesday, they when they came back to finish their last season a couple months ago, Gary Monk changed it back to a 5 at the back or a 3-5-2, however you want to describe it. Now I'm expecting they're going to play that tomorrow, depending on what sort of team they put out. But if they do put that out, I get the impression that
Liam is getting to the end of this point.
I'm going to get to the end of this point before the internet cuts out. Yeah, if Sheffield Wednesday play 3-5-2, I get the feeling that Dowell might match them with them being championship opposition, with it being a tough game, most likely. I feel like he might match them. So, although I think 4-2-3-1 is what he'll play going forward, I do feel like he might potentially match them on Saturday, formation-wise, with the 3 at the back.
Next question. So we've got something that someone's asked about George Nurse. He's missed the last couple of friendlies, which do you know anything about, or whether he's taken it?
I was, because I obviously didn't cover the Burton game. It was Stuart Sinclair and George Nurse that missed out against Burton.
Yeah.
So it's already on my plan to ask Darryl tomorrow in the press conference. So we'll hopefully find out then. Injuries have been a thing that we don't find out too much about with Darryl, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah.
And then finally, from our kind of viewer questions, ideal starting lineup for Saturday. It's difficult because we don't know what formation he's going to play, but I would like to see. I'd like to see him go with the 4-2-3-1. I'd like to see him go, right, if they're going to have a 5 at the back, let's attack them.
Yeah,
a bit foolish.
yeah, that's the issue you've got. Because it's difficult to say what formation he's going to play, I'm going to sort of give what my team would be in a 4-2-3-1 because it also relates then to the Grimsby game in the first day of the season. So I would say it would be Roberts, probably Norman to start.
Yeah.
Scar, Clark. Depending on whether George Nurse is injured or not, either him or Cochrane on it. Then again, depending on whether Sinclair's injured or not, it would be Kinsella and Guthrie, if not Guthrie and Sinclair. And then McDonald on the left, Holden in behind. Probably Gordon on the right, at least to start with anyway, I would suggest, and then Lavery up top. that will change very quickly if this the new lad settles into the right wing. But for now, I think that's what it'll be.
I agree. The only change I'd make is that I feel from the bits I've seen, Lavery didn't look particularly sharp up top. So I would keep Josh up top, I'd play Gordon up top, and either have the new guy out wide or give Nolan a shot. I know it's a big game, but then again, for the opening day of the season, I'm looking more at. But I've been quite impressed with Nolan so far. I think he's looked like he's quite a positive player and will be a good player for us. Um, but that's more of a selfish point that I don't want to see Gordon playing on the right wing a lot this season. I do want to see him either in behind the striker or as the striker.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd prefer him going through the middle, and I mean, I think he prefers going through the middle as well. So yeah, I would definitely prefer that. But until you've got new signings settled in or whatever, I think it's potentially his way he's going to have to fill in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be interesting.
Right. Well, I think that just about does us.
Flying by.
I know. I
Time
don't even know what
flies.
we started, but um, yeah, I don't think there's much else to discuss. I think we've kind of gone through it all. Um, one more question. Taking Josh Gordon out of it because you've already said it. Who do you think our key player is going to be for the season?
The easy answer would be Wes McDonald.
Yeah.
My prediction is going to be Danny Guthrie.
Ooh. Curveball choice.
Yeah. I think if you keep him fit, keep him in a formation that is going to suit his style of play, right in terms of where he is, in terms of fitness, in terms of, I say getting old. He's not actually that old yet, but he does seem to have lost at least half a yard of pace to an extent.
Yeah.
So I think a 4-2-3-1 suits him. I think if you have him in there receiving the ball from defence and being able to from the defence, not in defence himself, you know what I mean, and being able to just pivot on the ball and see the game in front of him and open it up, I think he can cause teams problems. And if you have someone next to him who's going to do the legwork, then I think that would work.
Yeah.
So yeah, the safe bet. I'm going to go Wes McDonald. My prediction is I'm going to go Danny Guthrie.
I agree with you, safe bet. Obviously for me, I think it's Flash. I think he is our key player, but I think he's the key player that everyone would say is.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with a bit of not a controversial one, a curveball one. I think it's going to be Holden.
I almost said him, by the way. I almost said Holden, and then I changed it last minute. But yeah, no, go on.
I think there was something about him in the Crew game that we played two different 45s. They played a few players. He looks like he really wants to be here, and he looks like he is now a Walsall player. He was very much the guy that he was on loan last year, but there's something about him, and I think if he sees this club as his, I don't know. I just think that he could have a really good season for us.
Well, I did that interview with him in, what was it, June or July? After you'd already left Warsaw, obviously with the loans and everything. But it's easy for me to say having spoke to him, but it's genuine to say that he's a really nice lad, and he does really want to be at Warsaw. Having spoke to him about it at the time when he wasn't back at the club, he said that he'd be open to coming back. He wants to come back. Obviously, at that point, he couldn't say, I 100% definitely want to be there because he doesn't know what his options are going to be. But and also he doesn't know if Walsall want him back probably at that time when I spoke to him. It was so early on, he probably didn't even know if the club wanted him at that point. But you could tell, and also by him saying I'm open to going back, you could tell he wanted to be there. And I think the criticism that he got in the first part of the season in a weird way, was probably what he needed. He sort of toughened him up a little bit, I think. Because from a journalistic point of view, I criticised him because he wasn't playing very well, but not. It wasn't. It was always written in a sort of analytical way.
Yeah,
Whereas there were a few fans online that got a little bit frustrated with him. It's probably the nicest way of saying it.
yeah,
And I don't know how much of it he would have seen, but having asked him about it and spoke to him about the criticism, I got the impression that he was well aware of what had been said for the most part. And I think in a strange way, I'm not advocating that anyone goes out and abuses someone online, but in a weird way, I think it's in a strange way what he needed, because I think it's toughened him up a little bit.
yeah,
He's also, you've got to remember, it was only like his second loan, was it? What, he was at Rochdale before, so he was learning. He's still learning. He was still getting into the swing of things, and we saw that in the second half of the season.
yeah,
Now you'll see him this season, and he's got less wiggle room because he can't afford to be off the boil for half a season.
yeah,
But he's also got that experience now. He's obviously not the most experienced player in the world, but he's got the experience of being through it at that club
yeah,
with the fans. And he's also, as much as he felt a bit of the hatred at times, he also felt a lot of the love in the second half of that season as well. And the fans wanted him back.
yeah. He pretty much summed up. If you could sum up Walsall's season in one player, it was Rory Holden.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, definitely.
He really did have. It, there was the promise there, but it wasn't delivering, which was the first half of our season. There was the promise there, but it was getting that consistency, and then he just something clicked, and it was really good. I was very happy to see him back.
And let's not forget, well, he played a lot of the first quarter, maybe first third of the season in right wing, and he's not a right winger. Um, he's very happy to help out where he's needed, but that's not his suit position. In number 10, he's much better. So you've got to remember that as well. He was having to do a job in what 4-4-2, playing right wing, when it's not really why he was brought in.
I,
So
wonder, I do wonder what he would be like in a 4-2-3-1 out wide, where he's less of a right mid, more of a right winger, which I think at times we may see him fit in there, but it's not where I'd want him to be playing.
it's possible, but I think if you're going to play that formation that's already playing a cam, he's most likely to play in there anyway. So,
Or you've got
that'd be
and the new guy switching between who's out on the wing for a spell, who's in the middle for a spell.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Hopefully it's going to be all positive. I'm just looking forward to it.
Yeah. Right, Liam, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, mate. I appreciate it.
Hopefully we'll be able to get a chance to do one in a couple of months' time and chat about the first part of the season and yeah, when we're top of the league and just absolutely.
Hopefully we can have a promotion party come May and then and go from there.
Everyone's waiting for the Liam Keane run on the pitch after a 90th minute winner, so.
I was almost on for that Holden one against Northampton.
Oh, everyone was.
Oh wait, I've got to start typing.
Yeah, that's the only way I thought that I could was going to warm up. Was running on. That was a tough game to watch the first half.
Very tough. It's funny. Very quickly, when that Holden one went in, it was like 93rd minute. I think there was 95 minutes of extra time, so it was virtually right at the end. But I didn't tweet to say Holden's won it, because I was very scared of me tweeting that and then Northampton equalising in like the last second. So I just tweeted my normal goal thing, but I almost tweeted, "Oh my God, Holden's won it," and then held back from
deleted the has won it.
No. So I'm glad. Well, I'll say I'm glad I did. We obviously didn't concede, so I wish I had, but I've got to be careful because I don't want to say that this season and get all excited. But
So
no, hopefully it'll be a good one, mate. I'm looking forward to. Really looking forward to the season starting.
Were you there to hear the Tommy Marlowe famous Holden shout? Did you hear it first?
I was, but I didn't hear it in. He only, well, obviously it'll be different now when we go back because it'll all be spaced out. But at the time, he only sat 2 rows behind me. But in like sort of craziness of it happening and me typing, all the actual the Banks is going completely insane. All fans on the pitch and everything. I didn't hear anything from behind me of what he was saying because I was just like so zoned in, and I only heard it and realised it when they tweeted it out like in an hour or 2 hours later, whatever it was. I mean, that was brilliant though, hilarious.
Let's have more of those moments this season. That's what I'm hoping for.
Hopefully.
Thanks to everyone who's watched. Feel free to share it around and hit the subscribe button because it's on YouTube. And yeah, we're trying to give you more of this type of thing as the season goes on. So any suggestions, fire them my way. And that's for the one person that's watched the whole thing to the end. Thank you. Cheers, Liam.
Cheers, mate.